comes down on one of the most competitive and entertaining seasons of championship touring car racing since Australia first embraced the Group A formula back in 1984. The spoils of the 92 Shell National Tour have been shared by a record number of drivers, Peter Brock causing the first upset at Amaroo, while the daring deeds of BMW speedster Tony Longhurst and Sierra hot shoe John Bowe have frustrated the front-running Nissan GTRs. A quick check of the point standings confirms Mark Scaife a narrow leader over teammate Jim Richards as Seven Sport bids you welcome to Oran Park Raceway, the grand final of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. It's the series swan song for turbo and four-wheel drive equipment. Next year it's full-on 5-litre V8 warfare between Holden and Ford.
This is going to be one hell of a fight between the two Australian V8 manufacturers. There's no doubt about that at all.
Exciting times ahead. Right now it's time to buckle up as we bring you the best in motorsport. Proudly presented by Shell. Go well, go Shell, and Synovus Vitamins. Hello there, I'm Mike Raymond. Welcome to Oran Park Raceway near Sydney and grand final day of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Well, can Mark Scaife do it today? Will Jim Richards rob him of the crown? And what are the roles to be played by Tony Longhurst and John Bowe? Alan Moffat, I'm sure you'll agree, we've got a few things there to work out this afternoon.
We have, and some cruel fate to Tony Longhurst this morning, mate. That was really bad luck.
Certainly. Actually, the Peter Jackson Dash normally starts proceedings at the racetrack. The top 6 draw out, and John Bowe, of course, had the outside of the front row heading down to the first turn. But as you can see, Tony Longhurst slid across the track after being punted from behind by Mark Gibbs and the GIO. Look out to the left. Gibbs on the grass, swacked straight into the side of Tony Longhurst. He finished up going across the track and flat spotted 4 tyres. John Bowe, in the meantime, went on to win it and win it very, very comfortably indeed. There was a helter-skelter for the minor placings, but Bowe picked up $29,000 through winning the Peter Jackson Dash Series. That puts him on pole position for today. I don't know whether Sierra actually has the legs against the Nissan. They've got a marvellous record here.
I think the Nissan has still got the chance to do it, and Freddie Gibson won't be taking any chances wanting to win the championship either for Mark Scaife or Jim Richards.
Well, we've got a power-packed program of racing coming your way from Oran Park this afternoon. The car's coming out for Heat 1 now. Let's take a look at the grid. From position number 1, it's 18 John Bowe in the Shell Sierra. From 2, Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan GTR. And Larry Perkins starts out of 3. From 4, it's 1, Jim Richards, the defending champion. From 5, Mark Gibbs in the GIO Nissan GTR. From 6, 05 Peter Brock, the Mobile Commodore. Dickie Johnson starts out of 7. From 8, it's 20 Alan Jones. From 9, 30 Glenn Seaton, the Peter Jackson Sierra. And out of 10, it's 8 Colin Bond in the Caltex CXT Sierra. Huge crowd pouring in, still pouring in here today to Oran Park Raceway for the grand final. The little yellow B&H BMW up the back of the field. A lot of fans upset about that one this morning. And John Bowe, Mr. Consistency in the Shell Sierra. Sharing the front row. Watch the Nissans get off the line. There they go. Goodbye all. As expected, they tear off into the distance. Bowe made an absolute shocker of a start. He's gone back about 8 spots, and even worse was Longhurst, who had to wait 10 seconds after they'd taken off. That's what the rules say. Mark Scaife getting through very, very smartly, and Mark Gibbs, of course, the man deemed to perhaps have caused Longhurst's woes, started back in the top 6.
John Bowe's done it twice now. He crept a little bit in Perth and got away with it, but he was creeping again there, and then he had to put his foot on the brake just when the lights went from red to green and cost him the start.
Well, they head up the hill for the first time as we welcome Mark Osler, and it looks like Nissan a 1, a 2 and a 3.
Yeah, they're looking very strong at Oran Park today. Very strong in the Peter Jackson Dash for cash earlier this morning. And the interesting thing about this field, the top 10 cars are covered by less than a second in qualifying, which is a pretty astonishing feat. Just shows how much faster the cars are going this year. There's Larry Perkins in amongst the battle. As Mike said, John Bowe making a terrible start off the grid. He's going to have to fight his way back through to this Nissan trifecta at the front. Can Mark Scaife become the youngest Australian touring car champion? We shall see as he leads them through on the first lap. Teammate Jim Richards in second, and Mark Gibbs, the man involved in that controversial mix-up in the Dash for Cash this morning, in 3rd position.
They come storming down the front straight into the left-hander, and putting a little pressure on Jimmy Richards is in fact Mark Gibbs. The Peter Jackson Sierra is 1 back behind them, as here comes Mark Gibbs straight down on the inside. A Nissan race cam shows it. Jim doesn't seem perturbed at all. I think Jim has resigned himself to the fact of who's going to win this one today. I don't think it's Jim.
I asked him yesterday how he was mentally ready for it. He said, no, well, it's Scafey's championship, so he's prepared to sit there and let him go, and obviously only take up the chips if they fall out in front. But interesting run here with the 3 GTRs when they have to do it, or they want to do it.
Yeah.
The CAM's handicapping system's been criticized all season, and it was just absolutely dreadful to hear that 100 kilos had been put on these cars, but hasn't done a thing to them.
No, you're right. Oh, John Bow gets it loose. Tail into the wall there, and that may be rubbing against the tyre.
Really hurting there now.
He hit that concrete wall very hard. You captured that on the camera there, and the bodywork is rubbing. Smoke billowing from the back of the car. John gave the wall a real clout when he came out onto the main straight there.
That's a good example of power oversteer, it's called.
Look at this. He pulled the flare off too, I think, on the way through.
He's lost his driver's mirror as well.
I don't think he'll be worrying about that, but the smell of that smoke in the cockpit is always nerve-wracking, and it certainly doesn't look too good for him. But when you unleash 550 horsepower, you have to have the steering just absolutely straight. The car broke away as it came up onto the main straight and had it just a little cocked with no walls in place on any other place. A little wiggle would get him out of it, self-correcting. But
and of course, the battle today is for the minors. It's for third in the championship, and the two key players being John Bow and Tony Longhurst.
That's right, John Bow on 162 points, Longhurst 3 points ahead on 165. At the moment on the track, at least, Bow will be looking stronger, but Longhurst will be fighting his way back to the field, and Bow now limping with this problem. Whether this is just part of the fiberglass flare rubbing and it'll wear itself down, we don't know.
I don't think so, mate. Not with that amount of smoke. It's billowing out from inside the wheel well, and I would say that he's going to start getting quite nervous coming through this fast right-hander where the weight of the car goes onto that right rear. Not very entertaining for a driver to ever have to worry about his tires. It's very, very crucial. Only a little bit of rubber on the ground separates them from heaven. Is Bondy with some problem?
Colin Bond. Yep, he's got it going again. So he's had a little off over there on the grass, trying to knock the flare back for JB and get the fresh rubber on the car.
If Longhurst can continue to pick up some points, that moves him a lot closer to the ambition that he wants to achieve today, and that's to finish third outright in the championship.
Well, that's a commendable achievement if he pulls it off with the level of competition that's been around from the very first round of the Shell Championship. And you get that by accumulating points every weekend, and the BMW hasn't had a failure all season. Tremendous engineering, great preparation.
Meanwhile, Tony Longhurst continues his charge from the back of the field. He's moved up 2 more places to 10th. As this continuing battle between the two GTRs over the bridge, Jim Richards, Mark Gibbs. And John Bow heads back out of pit lane. Appropriate panel beating work done. So here's the top 3. Scaife, Mark Gibbs, Jim Richards. Nissan 1, 2, 3. Just what they would have been looking for. And here's the man who can perhaps move into third place in the championship if things go his way. They certainly have gone in the first heat, thanks to John Bow, Tony Longhurst.
We're taking our Castrol race cam. Keeping in mind this is riding under the front of Tony Longhurst's car. Just give you an indication of how quickly he's picking up the field as Jimmy Richards up on the inside of Mark Gibbs. They go down the front straight at Oran Park. Gibbs had been holding down a strong second to Mark Scaife, and I think Jim's doing the protector's role here today. Drops up into second, keeps the field away from young Mark, so he's doing the right thing as the team driver for Mark Scaife.
Jim had a close call going down that main straight yesterday in qualifying, and lost it on the approach to that fast left-hander. But the experienced driver that he is, he didn't fight the car, he let it go, and the sand trap saved him. Ripped off a little bit of under flaring in the brake department, but had he decided to fight that car on such a fast corner, he might have spun it into a very nasty accident.
Mark Scaife, car number 2, heads off towards Yamaha corner as as we recap them for you. Scope, the race leader over Jimmy Richards. Mark Gibbs, what a day for the GTRs. 1, 2, 3. Glenn Seaton runs in fourth, and Alan Jones in the Benson and Hedges machine rounds out the 5. At Oran Park Raceway, Glenn Seaton trying to fend off a very determined Alan Jones in the B&H BMW. Jones in the 20 machine has made up probably 100 metres or so and dives to the inside, just shows the front of the BMW to Glenn Seaton. They exit that turn up to the right, then the left. And watch Jones under brakes as they come down the hill if he's close enough. No, not close enough that time. Alan Jones not a contender for a top 5 finish in the championship. Certainly here's Dickie Johnson with Tony Longhurst down the inside of him as he comes storming through the field. And you're riding with him courtesy of our Castrol race cam. Johnson gets on the draft and tries to respond for that cheeky manoeuvre, but Jones has him reasonably covered until they get halfway down the straight. Then watch him again, straight down on the inside. They're coming up on Brocky's next.
No shortage of straight line speed from the little BMW.
Absolutely not. They'll be able to do that on Conrad all day long. And anybody that thinks that these fellas have been severely handicapped should think again.
Well, he looks like he might have a good co-driver. Johnny Chuclotto is returning again.
BMW factory driver. They're obviously really chirpy about their chances at Bathurst, but this is great. This is what Bathurst is all about. Everybody wants to get in there, at least have a chance.
Absolutely. Alan Jones, we've followed. Now Tony Longhurst as he comes up behind Peter Brock. Boy, is he storming through the field.
Now sitting in position 9.
Our little camera I can see just down there under the front guard. As he zeroes in on the tail of Brock's car, coming up to Yamaha corner. And he's all over Peter Brock. Here he comes down the inside. That's one more. Goes to the back of the queue. And I think the one in front may even be Paul Morris.
Tony made that look fairly easy. Pounced on the 05 Commodore.
So it's got plenty of potential. Watch for Tony, providing he doesn't do too much to his tyres in this opening heat, in heat number 2 this afternoon, because the boys out front are running the Nissans fairly hard.
Yeah, I don't think the tyres are much as a worry as we thought, Mike. The pace that the GTR are doing up front would indicate that they're not too concerned about the second heat. They're going for good points in the first heat, and they're going to take their chances in the second. No one seems to be holding back too much at all.
Well, there hasn't been holding back from many of the teams this weekend. There's Peter Brock, 05, Mobile Commodore. Hasn't had the best of seasons thus far. And saying yesterday, another one of the drivers behind the change to the outright 5-litre class for next year, and they have some big plans. Forward to hearing them. Brocky heads off up to Yamaha, and Dick Johnson, of course, is just sitting on his bumper. Both of them have been passed by Tony Longhurst.
So Dick chases up after Brock. This is an important race, an historic race for the Shell Sierra team. This is the last time we'll see these turbo Fords in an Australian Touring Car Championship race. It's been a very successful car for them. 2 Australian titles. Bathurst victory, 2 runners-up at Bathurst. 25 wins and 32 pole positions for the Ford Sierra. In Australian Touring Car Racing, it's been their most successful model.
Now we get interesting. Here is Tony Longhurst all over his teammate, Paul Morris. Comes down the inside. Morris will know he's there.
Not quite.
Straight again. Out against the wall. Just look how taily the cars are. They're shifting all that weight. Well, this will provide some fascinating picks. Down the inside. Tony guns it. Now moving up on Larry Perkins. This should be equally enthralling. This little thing, this neat little jigger, I'll tell you what, is really fabulous to watch in anger.
Back to the David Goliath struggle here. Big 1,300 kilogram V8 Holden.
And want to be very careful now, because Larry's got 1,300 kilos to lay into him.
Colin Bond in the pits. Fuel pump problems for Colin Bond.
Last lap now for Heat 1 of the final round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, and Mark Scaife leads his teammate and former Australian Touring Car champion Jim Richards. It's Mark Gibbs in 3rd place. 4th place it's Alan Jones. 5th it's Glenn Seaton, under siege from Tony Longhurst. 2.62 kilometres to run. Fred Gibson, team manager. Pretty pleasing day for him, I should think. They're going to clean up the Australian Touring Car Championship, and his protege, Mark Scaife, is also going to win the Australian Drivers' Championship for Tuis. And big occasion for that team.
Well, Alan, you know all about form finishes.
Oh, I've been there once. I'd like to say once or twice, but I can only say once. But it's a great achievement, getting any two-car team to the field. Getting them to the start line is an achievement on many occasions. The mechanical dramas that take place is unlike, as I referred to Cape Canaveral a minute ago, they can cancel the launch. There's never been a race cancelled because the race team wasn't ready.
Last corner now for Mark Scaife. He's going to take heat one. Jim Richards has closed right up. They make the run towards the checkered flag, and Mark Scaife takes the win. Tremendous performance. Second place goes to Jimmy Richards. Enormous gap back to Mark Gibbs. There's Gibbsy. And it's on for young and hold here. We've got Alan Jones, and look at Glenn Seaton side by side with Tony Longhurst, and it runs in favour of Seaton. That was a thrilling finish, a great charge from Tony. Boy, they don't come much closer than that. So that resolves the top six, but a tremendous performance from Mark Scaife, and he must be absolutely thrilled. Shell Race Score confirms the placings for us. It's Mark Scaife, the Winfield Nissan, from his teammate Jimmy Richards. Third's Mark Gibbs in the GIO Nissan. Fourth, Alan Jones, and fifth was Glenn Seaton. We're back with more motor racing action in just a moment.
Jody Russell singing the national anthem, and high above the circuit at the moment as we await the start of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship Grand Final, Dave Benson from Skydive Australia team. 4,221 square foot flag underneath a parachute. A world record here today at Oran Park Raceway, just adding to the activities. A fabulous day, the grand final of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, and we have the cars out on the grid now. And let's check them out for you on our Shell Race Score. Mark Scaife on pole position in the Winfield Nissan GTR, and his teammate Jim Richards alongside. Mark Gibbs makes it a trifecta for the Nissans in the GIO car. Alan Jones starts out of 4, and Glenn Seaton, the Peter Jackson Sierra, out of position 5. Tony Longhurst, keep an eye on him. The BMW, 25 out of 6, and from 7, 23, Paul Morris, the third of the B&H cars. From 8, it's number 11, Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore. From 9, 17, Nicky Johnson in the Shell Sierra. Rounding out the 10 in car number 05, Peter Brock, the Mobil 1 Commodore. We're ready for the grand final at Oran Park. We're about 4 seconds away from the start. Will it be Nissan or Tony Longhurst split them in the opening lap? They're off, the two Nissans. See you guys. Jones breaks into wheel spin. Perkins goes down the inside. He's gathered up smartly by Dick Johnson. Not the best of starts from Tony Longhurst. The Bimmer suffered badly off the start. And you'll see the 3 Nissan GTRs will lead them down into turn number 1. Brock made a blinder down the outside. Glenn Seaton also a good start. There on the outside is Tony Longhurst, and John Bow has gained about 9 spots so far as the Nissans close it up, heading down to the right-hand turn.
Great start from Peter Brock, as you said, Mike. And there's John Bow tucked in behind the Mobil Commodore. John damaged the car, as you saw in the first heat, when he rammed it really hard against the wall coming onto the main straight. They've done the body repairs required, and actually that's Dick Johnson in front of his teammate there, so Bow in behind the first of the BMWs.
He has done well, because Bow in fact started out of position 15, I think it was, in the pack. So he has made a long run at the field, got up very smartly. Up to 9th already. There's Larry Perkins and Peter Brock right behind him. As they break it into single file, they run downhill for the approach to Goodyear. Glenn Seaton a little wobbly getting out of that turn. Bounding down to the bottom corner. Larry Perkins sits in and he splits the BMW as they come across the line. Scaife the leader, Richards in second, and Mark Gibbs. Alan Jones actually got away to a much better start than Tony Longhurst, and the rest of the field go by as we pick them up heading down to the left-hander at the end of the long straight here at Oran Park.
So it's Scaife, Richards, Gibbs, Seaton, a good start from there. Larry Perkins has everything locked up as Alan Jones looks down the inside and takes him on the corner. Perkins way out of shape. Brock sneaks up as well. And then it's Johnson, Bow, and Steve Reed in the Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore.
Tires still a little bit cold after only 1 lap. They really do like to get a couple of laps under them before they can be as sticky as they need to be. And once you press that brake pedal, the tendency to lock a front up is devastating, and that's all Alan Jones needed to get by Larry Perkins.
This will be great stuff. The Castrol race cam shows it all as we ride beneath the front of Tony Longhurst's B&H BMW.
Look at the battle for hold supremacy. Tony's getting a lovely view of that 4 inches off the deck. Larry Perkins out qualifying Peter Brock on Saturday afternoon. And this is a real tough-it-out battle. Larry in the older VL, Peter in the later VN model, and right behind them, Tony Longhurst. So Longhurst's going to keep these two big V8 Holdens honest in this second heat. And John Bowe, meanwhile, moves up the back of Longhurst to try and resume his fight, to try and hang on to third position of the championship. But after that retirement from the first heat with the body damage, I think Longhurst has it.
Look at this. John Bowe down the inside of Tony Longhurst. No beg your pardons. There's Bowe. Oh,
we've seen it
quite clean under there too.
We've seen it so many times this year, Mike. The BMW and John Bowe Sierra. These two have been locked in battle in so many heats of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship this year. One of them ending in controversial circumstances at Winton, but it hasn't detracted from the excellent sense of competition between these two cars.
JB goes through in the 18 car. Brocky is all over the back of Larry Perkins' car. He can't do much about that. And the second group is moving right up behind them as they exit off the bridge. Bowe, Longhurst, Jones away to a good start, as we mentioned, and the three Nissans, Mark Scaife, Jimmy Richards and Mark Gibbs, hold the three front-running spots at the moment as they drop down to Goodyear Corner. It's a little bit closer than the opening heat.
Yes, I don't think any of them are worrying about their tires now, Mike. This is the last run for the season. 92 as far as the Shell Touring Car Championship is concerned. And Brock up there giving Larry a good punt. Well, I shouldn't say punt, but a good run. Larry seems to have the legs on him down the straight. He won't want to make any mistakes here on the brakes. Brocky's renowned for his foot on the brake pedal. He can go in as deep as anybody.
It was fabulous yesterday with Brocky running around on two wheels in that turn, and had time actually to wave to one of the track photographers.
Yeah, well, Peter's always liked to drive with one hand out the window, or a waving if possible. It's
maybe he was calling for help.
A habit he got used to when he was out in front so many times, but not so easy for him to do it today. In this field.
These guys are coming up just a little bit closer to the tail end of the GIO GTR of Mark Gibbs. Glenn Seaton, the number 30 Peter Jackson entry, and Alan Jones, the number 20 Benson and Hedges BMW. You can expect a blinder from Jonesy here today. He's already indicated his last run for the B&H Frank Gardner team will be at Bathurst this year. He wants to do different things for next year. He wants to develop those that skill for the younger drivers in karting, move them up to Formula Ford, then into touring cars. So his touring car days are far from over. But he did tell me during the week he wants to get back where he is in a position of winning races again.
Well, he wasn't world champion for nothing, Mike. I was lucky enough to see him win his world championship at Caesars Palace, and it was Alan Jones and then the rest of the field. He didn't luck into it. He just monstered the whole Formula One field that particular day to take his crown. And I think retired prematurely, but how he went about organizing his life was his own doing. But I think had he stayed in Formula One a few more years, he would have won a few more championships.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Here comes AJ right up under the tail now of Glenn Seaton, starting to put some more pressure, shortening up a couple of the corners, getting set down here for a little inside run, maybe on the approach to the Goodyear corner.
Well, you can see Glenn Seaton on the brakes through that corner, just slowing the car down a little bit. He's probably braking with his left foot and gassing it with his right hand, but there weren't any brake lights on the BMW.
This battle continues. The old protagonists, and Longhurst went out wide there. John Bowe has him, and they come onto the main straight. Look at the straight line speed of this BMW. 2.5 litre four-cylinder engine. They're getting an enormous amount of revs out of these engines this year. John Bowe showing the superior power of the turbo Ford Sierra, somewhere in the region of 550 as opposed to 350 or more. But look at how the BMW monsters this turbo Ford through the slower parts of the track.
I want to remember one thing too, with the introduction of the chicane at Bathurst, the Conrad Straight is almost only half as long as it used to be. The thought that all you had to do was have horsepower at Bathurst and you could blast everybody off in a straight line, that doesn't come into it as much anymore. And the little BMWs, as they're going here today, are a tremendous potential threat at Bathurst.
As you're aware, the regulations and specifications governing Australian touring car racing will change as of December 31st of this year. Phased out are turbocharged and four-wheel drive cars. Phased in a two-class formula for 93, Class 1 for 5-litre V8s, bringing together Ford's EB Falcon and Holden's VP Commodore, with a Class 2 for 2-litre equipment as per the successful British touring car regulations. For the best of both worlds, 2 litres and the return of the fabulous 5-litre Big Bangers. And to explain just how the class will go, CAM's president, John Larch.
Clearly, Australian motor racing has always been positioned between America on the one hand and Europe on the other hand. And insofar as the 5-litre cars of Ford and Holden are concerned, yes, this is definitely road racing of NASCAR-style cars, but the cars will be higher tech than the NASCAR cars. They'll be faster, and they'll be turning both left and right on proper road circuits. I believe this is what the public want to see. This is indeed fair dinkum motor racing.
Battling up front in a car which you know can win a race. It fires every team up, fires every drive up. It's a good feeling.
I like a V8, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you see some of the old Holdens going down here and they sound fantastic. Just let's hope we can get a good feel of them, that's all. And if we can do that, I think it'll be great.
So the experts have had their say. But what do the fans think? Let's go and find out.
I think the Falcons will be good, but and the Commodores will be good, but it's good seeing the BMWs and the Nissans and stuff too.
I think they just like seeing the larger cars go around, more noise, more excitement.
Yeah, good to see a bit of Aussie V8 power.
Oh yeah, for sure, mate. Especially in the Falcons, I think it's the best thing that could ever happen.
I reckon it'll be bloody good for the sport myself. I reckon it's about time it came back into it.
Well, just a selection or a sample of how the fans on the hill feel. It certainly will be exciting formula. John Bowd making this a formula. Very, very exciting this afternoon. Ford versus Holden, the Turbo. Sierra getting back under Peter Brock again. Closing on Larry Perkins.
You could see there when we went to the tape item, there was plenty of biff and barge going on. Both Holdens carrying some battle damage. Larry Perkins' left rear tyre actually scraping. And look at the front of Brock's mobile car all stoved in there after that contact.
So he's had a little touch as well. So a 2-litre class next year as of 93. And the format for the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship as it's listed at the moment, Alan, a race for the 5-litre cars, a secondary race for the 2-litre cars, and an all-in final with split points. It's another dimension of the Touring Car Championship. I don't think there'll be too many people unhappy. Whoops, as Dickie Johnson goes off.
I don't think anybody will be too unhappy, although, of course, whenever there's change, there's drama for a lot of people. But I think if some of the people can get rid of their selfishness and worry a bit about what's right for the fraternity and what's right for the people that are going to pay their money to come and see it, we'll have a great formula this time in a year's time.
Let's have a look at Dickie Johnson. Hauled it into the right-hander. Oh, a little touch there, or a scrape from Paul Morris, and around goes Dick on our Dunlop race cam. Backs it around, out of harm's way, and the rest of the field goes through.
Well, just a good indication of the Nissan domination at Oran Park this afternoon. 16 seconds the gap now from Jim Richards back to Alan Jones in 3rd place.
Yeah,
Here's
well,
Brocky.
I don't know what they were doing in the beginning of the season when they were, you know, running 8th and 9th in the field. It does beg the question a little bit. I really personally quite disappointed about the way this is all unfolding, but you know, this is motor racing.
We've got a good race going between Larry Perkins and Peter Brock, just disputing the midfield position. John Bowers managed to split them. Paul Morris has arrived like a white knight. He's already got past Dick Johnson and now starting to close on these two Commodores. Alan Jones doing his best to try and peg them back, and Tony Longhurst free of this group of cars as they drop down into the dogleg.
Larry and Brock fighting for Holden supremacy, not forgetting that these two were actually teammates for a number of years and teamed up for a lot of Bathurst success in the early 80s. Gone their separate ways.
Well, neither of them will give up. Both Tigers, when it comes to getting their foot on the metal, they're not going to give up.
I tell you, is lighting up the tyres. No end. Paul Morris, I don't know if he's got something rubbing there, but he's really been lighting them up at the end of the front straight. Here's Brocky up again. You can only push so far with Larry because he knows Larry's on his way into the turn. Just puts the nose down there, stays as close as he can.
One of the cleanest drivers in all Australian touring car racing. Peter Brock very rarely ever taps anybody. He'll sit there and fight his way. He'll make his move when he feels right, but driving in a very sporting fashion here. And certainly not that Larry Perkins isn't doing his job to the best of his abilities.
5 laps to go.
Got a guy right on his hammer. He can't make the slightest mistake.
Tony Longhurst is closing the gap on Glenn Seaton now, down to 2.8 seconds.
I'd say both Larry and who's suffering a bit from the flu, he's going to get out of this car absolutely wrung out, and Brocky's given it everything he's got. They're going to be a couple of tired athletes at the end of this. Might seem like only a few laps, but the energy that has to go into manhandling these cars around a circuit of this nature is tremendously draining, mentally exhausting. Can't do it that way, can't do it that way. As soon as the brake locks up, they lose the steering.
Those tyres on Brock's car will be pretty second-hand by now. He's been locking them up pretty severely over the last 10 laps from what I've been seeing. Paul Morris doing the same thing. So he's really going very deep under brakes to try and get past Larry.
Down into the right-hander, brings them uphill now to the bridge. And I think Brocky's thrown everything, including the kitchen sink at Larry. There's not much more he can do. Just a little taily getting out of that.
Taily there. You can see it wiggling in the back, Mike. I'll tell you, if we can see it wiggling, it feels like it's an absolute pendulum to him behind the wheel.
And of course, Paul Morris wants a part of the action. But gee, that must look like a long freight train ahead of him.
He's driving extremely close to Larry and hasn't touched him.
Well, Mark Gibbs has climbed back onto this battle. He had to spin earlier in the race. And he's trying to work his way back through the field as well, but he's got a lot of work here.
Larry went wide, and that's all Peter wanted.
And I think you'll find Morris will try and get down the inside. Just check the horsepower stakes here as Brocky gets away. Larry's thing just gathers in some more 200 HP.
They're playing with fire here. They're playing with fire here. It's exactly what we've seen happen earlier. You have to have the real estate in front of you to make a move like that. And once he lost traction with his brakes, he was out of control. He had to let the car go.
Well, you can see in the last 2 or 3 laps, Brock was in big trouble. He was locking brakes everywhere. The car was sliding and slipping. He's having difficulty in the power. Now let's have a look at that again on the replay. Big lock up. Brock goes offline. When the back wheel gets onto the dirt, he's gone. Larry locks everything up to try and avoid him. The other guys got around him quite well, actually.
And you notice.
And Larry slips off.
Larry did a good job there. 3 laps to go. Mark Gibbs has been the big winner out of all of this. As we showed you that replay, he's found a path past Perkins. Morris is down now.
Yes, well, Larry had very little defense against that move as well. He's at the end of his tether.
He's got the back bumper bar hanging off the car. Meanwhile,
now we have Jimmy Richards sitting right behind Mark Scaife.
Yes, I think we're looking at a little get-together here for a photo finish or
a form
finish.
I'm sorry, I forgot my cue.
One of those 77 form finishes.
Thank you very much, Michael.
But here comes Mark. Jim playing rear gunner, and they are well and truly clear of the field.
Well, this will cap a remarkably successful period in Australian touring car racing for Nissan. This is their 3rd Australian Touring Car Championship on the trot. It's also the 3rd championship for their tyre supplier, Yokohama. Tony Longhurst, when this race is over, may well be 3rd in the championship. But the Nissans really have dominated this year. Scaife and Richards climbed onto the top of the points table from the 2nd race on, and they've been up there ever since.
It's exciting stuff here, though, as Tony Longhurst comes down on the inside of Glenn Seaton. They are putting a lap on the Commodore, and now you'll find that Tony will try and sit in for the draft. He missed that pull down the straight as Glenn gets away in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Longhurst has made a steady climb through the field. Alan Jones just ahead of them.
You can see the way he throws the car into that left-hander with impunity. He doesn't worry about it sliding around. It is not wiggling. It's going exactly where he wants to place it. So in proportion to the power and the weight of the car, the Yokohama have done a superb job with this team in supplying rubber that is working very well for them.
So Mark Scaife bound for an Australian Touring Car crown here today at Oran Park Raceway, and the defending champion and his team partner Jimmy Richards sits in behind. Mark in the number 2 Winfield Nissan GTR, the 4-wheel drive twin turbo car, exits that turn. Big question about what they will be running in season 93, the Winfield team. They come into the final corner now. Crowd already to its feet to acknowledge and to salute Mark Scaife, the 92 Shell Australian Touring Car Champion. Second spot goes to Jimmy Richards in a form finish across the line, and third still to come in as they head down into the bottom turn. And it should be Alan Jones in the Benson and Hedges BMW car number 20, and there he is there on camera, coming out of the last corner to finish in third place. So behind the two Nissans, it was daylight back to third, and even more daylight back to fourth, and that happened to be his team partner, Tony Longhurst, in the number 25 B&H BMW. Let's check them out and confirm for you on our Shell race score. Mark Scaife, the winner. Second spot to his teammate Jimmy Richards, third Alan Jones, fourth Tony Longhurst, and fifth was John Bauer in the Shell Sierra. Raceway, third place in the final today. What a performance today to our ex-Formula One champ, Alan Jones. Well done, Alan.
Thanks, Mark.
I tell you, that was a long time coming.
Yeah, it's been a long time before drinks, but hopefully next year I'll be last to come up and see you.
Oh, yes, of course. Were you working on plans for next year already?
Yep.
All right, you'll keep them to yourself until then?
Yep.
Thanks, Al. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mark.
All
Bye.
the best to you. Runner-up and second today in the National Championship was the defending Shell champion, Jimmy Richards. Well, you had a few moments in practice yesterday, but you played a magnificent role today. Some interesting racing.
It was good, yes. You know, our cars fortunately were good for two heats around here, and that's what was the difference. But I'd like to congratulate Mark. He's done a fantastic job all year, and he's a worthy champion.
Well said, and you haven't even raised a sweat.
Exactly.
Good on you, Jimmy. And ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you, for Shell Australia, the youngest touring car champion in our history, Mark Scaife.
Thanks, Mike.
I bet that feels super, does it?
It's fantastic. The guys have worked very hard all year, and you know, to Gibson Motorsport, Winfield, Nissan, Yokohama, Shell, Australian Airlines, all our sponsors, thank you very much.
Good boy, Mark Scaife. And to put the sash on you, Tommy Smith from Shell. Being a Shell boy, you'd appreciate that.
Congratulations, Mark. Not only a great race today, but a magnificent season. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Final points in the championship, Mark Scaife and Jimmy Richards for Winfield Team Nissan, 1-2. Tony Longhurst third in the series on 184. John Bowers next on 175, and Glenn Seaton on 173. What a series, Alan Moffat.
Well, it was great, but certainly 1993 is going to be even more exciting.
I sincerely believe that. And Mark, we'll see you next when we go motor racing.
Sure will.
Don't forget to join us on 7 from Amaroo Park on August 23. Bye till then. Today's motor racing telecast was proudly brought to you by Synovus Vitamins and Shell. Go well, go Shell. This has been another 7 Sport production.